In a world where love often chases wealth, she chose kindness instead, and that single choice rewrote both their destinies. This is the story of a girl who fell in love with a heart, not a fortune, and proved that true love is priceless. The city never slept, and neither did Emily's worries. Every day felt like a race she was destined to lose, rushing from one interview to another, juggling her mother's medical appointments, fighting bills that seemed to multiply overnight. She wasn't poor in dreams, but reality had taught her to live with little and expect even less. That night, rain poured heavily, soaking her thin coat and the stack of resumes she clutched to her chest like they were lifelines. When she stumbled into a quiet cafe, shivering and dripping water, all she wanted was a moment of warmth, a small escape from the storm both outside and within. She ordered the cheapest cup of tea she could afford and sat in a corner, watching the city blur behind glass. That's when she noticed him. A young man sat a few tables away, dressed plainly in jeans and a hoodie, a book in one hand and a sandwich barely touched before him. He didn't look like someone who belonged in headlines or boardrooms. He looked ordinary, almost invisible, in his simplicity. Yet when his eyes lifted and met hers, Emily felt something unfamiliar. She felt seen. Most people brushed past her, too caught up in their own lives to notice, but he offered a small, unforced smile. Minutes later, the waitress approached Emily with a slice of cake and a kind grin. "From the gentleman over there," she said softly. Emily blinked in surprise, glancing back at him, but he wasn't looking her way anymore. He had returned to his book, as if the gesture meant nothing, but to Emily, it meant the world. It had been so long since someone had shown her kindness without asking for something in return. When the rain eased and she prepared to leave, she found him standing outside, holding an umbrella. "You don't have one," he said simply, offering it to her. She hesitated, unsure whether to accept, but his quiet sincerity left no room for doubt. "Thank you," she whispered, giving him her name. "Emily?" He nodded once, almost shyly, and replied, "Daniel." That night she walked home beneath an umbrella that wasn't hers, her heart strangely lighter than it had been in weeks. What she didn't know was that Daniel Carter was not just another kind stranger. He was heir to one of the city's wealthiest real estate empires. But Daniel wasn't living as the world expected him to. Tired of the shallow relationships that his last name attracted, he often disguised himself as just another man blending into the city. And that night, he had found something he didn't even know he was searching for. A girl whose eyes carried both struggle and strength, someone who had smiled at kindness rather than fortune. For both of them, it was the start of something neither had dared to imagine. Days passed, and Emily's life returned to its familiar rhythm of struggle. She worked shifts at a bookstore, filled out endless applications, and spent sleepless nights worrying about her mother's medication. Yet she often found herself thinking about Daniel, the stranger with the umbrella, whose kindness lingered like the warmth of a forgotten sun. She didn't expect to see him again, but fate had other plans. One quiet afternoon at the bookstore, Daniel walked in. His hoodie was pulled over his head, and he looked around as if searching for something specific. When their eyes met, Emily froze in surprise, then smiled hesitantly. He returned it with that same unassuming warmth. "I didn't know you worked here," he said, placing a novel on the counter. "Part-time," she explained, ringing it up. Their conversation was brief but genuine, filled with little observations rather than small talk. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began stopping by more often, sometimes to buy books, sometimes just to say hello. Slowly, Emily learned pieces of him, that he loved old literature, that he preferred quiet walks to crowded parties, that he often volunteered at shelters without telling anyone. He asked about her dreams, her struggles, and listened in a way no one else ever did. One evening, When she confessed how hard things had been since her mother's illness, Daniel didn't offer pity or hollow reassurances. Instead, he said, "You're stronger than you realize, Emily. Don't let this world convince you otherwise." His words stayed with her. What Emily didn't know was that Daniel was hiding a truth, one that could change everything. He wanted to tell her who he really was, but every time he tried, fear stopped him. He was terrified that if she knew about his fortune, she'd see him differently, that their fragile connection would crumble into something shallow and transactional. And so he remained Daniel in a hoodie, just a man who cared, not the billionaire's heir. For Emily, his kindness became a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't invisible, that she was worth someone's time. And for Daniel, her laughter and resilience became the most precious thing in his life, something no fortune could ever buy. Their bond deepened with every passing day, turning from casual conversations to long walks in the park, shared coffee, cups, and moments of silence that felt comfortable rather than empty. Emily began to realize that Daniel was unlike anyone she had ever known. He noticed the little things, like how she hummed when she was nervous, or how she always gave the last cookie to someone else. He never made her feel small for her struggles. Instead, he admired her for them, and without meaning to, Emily began to fall, not for his looks, not for what he might own, but for the quiet strength of his kindness. Daniel, in turn, found himself falling harder than he ever expected. But with each step closer, the weight of his secret grew heavier. His family was beginning to pressure him, reminding him of arranged business dinners, potential alliances, and the image he had to uphold as a Carter. Rumors swirled about his absence from the elite circles, and soon his double life could no longer stay hidden. The breaking point came one evening when Emily stumbled upon an article in the bookstore's newspaper, a photo of Daniel in a tailored suit, standing beside his father at a charity gala, under the headline, "Carter Heir Continues Legacy." Her hands shook as she realized the man in the photo was the same Daniel she had been seeing in hoodies and jeans. Confusion, hurt, and disbelief overwhelmed her. When he walked in later that evening, she held up the newspaper with trembling hands. "Who are you, Daniel?" she whispered, her voice breaking. He froze, guilt flashing across his face. "Emily, I wanted to tell you, but what?" she snapped, tears brimming. "That I was too poor to deserve the truth? That you thought I'd only care about your money?" Silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the sound of her heart shattering. Daniel reached for her, but she stepped back. "I didn't fall for your fortune, Daniel. I fell for your kindness. But maybe you don't trust me enough to believe that." With that, she walked away, leaving him standing alone, torn between his world of wealth and the only love that had ever felt real. For weeks, Emily avoided him, burying herself in work and responsibilities, trying to convince herself that she didn't need him. Yet no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't erase the memories of his kindness, the umbrella, the laughter, the way he listened. Meanwhile, Daniel was determined not to lose her. He skipped board meetings, ignored his family's disapproval, and searched for ways to prove that his love was genuine. Finally, one evening, he showed up at the bookstore again, not in a suit or a hoodie, but simply as himself. He placed a worn umbrella on the counter, the same one he had given her the night they met. "Emily," he began softly, "I can't change who I was born as, but I can promise you this. I am not my fortune. I am the man who noticed you in the rain, the man who wanted to share cake with you, the man who fell in love with your strength and your heart. I kept my world from you not because I doubted your love, but because I was terrified of losing it. And I'm done hiding. If you can't love me as I am, with everything included, I'll understand. But if you can, then I'll spend the rest of my life proving that you were never just a chapter in my story. You were the whole book." Tears blurred. If this story touched your heart, remember, true love isn't about fortune, it's about kindness. Share this video with someone who still believes in real love. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Vibes for more emotional stories that remind us what really matters in life. Emily's vision. But this time, they were not from hurt. She saw the truth in his eyes, the sincerity in his voice. Slowly, she reached across the counter and took the umbrella, her fingers brushing his. "I never wanted your money, Daniel," she whispered. "I only ever wanted you." In that moment, the storm between them finally broke, replaced by the warmth of forgiveness and the certainty of love. From then on, their story was not about wealth or status, but about two souls who found each other in the chaos of the city. One who had everything except love, and one who had nothing but her heart. Together, they built a life not measured in fortune, but in kindness, laughter, and the kind of love that truly changes everything.